very special guest, Daniella Rabbani. If you're here, you saw the emails. I am a huge fangirl of Daniella's. I just love everything that she does, and what she does is like mind-boggling. And so you've seen the email, you know that she's a multi-hyphenate person, which means she's actor, producer, director, singer in Yiddish. She just activist, mother, podcaster. The list goes on. And so entrepreneur, I'm going to say too.
Oh, I'm not, I wish I was an entrepreneur. Can you give me some of that? If anyone here is an entrepreneur and wants to give me some of that business juju, I'll take it. I
You're
will.
building something right now, something really big and beautiful and special. So can you can you start by telling us how did you get here? How did you become all of these different things? Can you get into that a little bit?
Sure. I grew up on Great Neck, Long Island. If anyone is a Long Island Jew, hello. Most of my life has been spent nice, has been spent in the city, but you know, my formative years from 7 to 17 on Long Island, those are pretty sticky times. But my parents are Israeli actually, so we spoke Hebrew at home, and I was raised modern Orthodox. And you know, the in Great Neck where I grew up, it was like I went to an Ashkenazi yeshiva, like Hebrew school, day school, but it was a very Persian, like Iranian Jewish town. And my, you know, my grandparents, before they lived in Israel, before it was the modern state of Israel, they were from Esfahan. And so I come from a lot of these different sort of cultural backgrounds, like the Sephardic and the Ashkenazi, and my grandparents are Holocaust survivors on my mother's side. And I learned Torah all day, every day. And, you know, practicing Orthodox Judaism didn't end up being for me, although I didn't find that out until I was in my mid 20s, until I was actually in my late 20s. But storytelling really stuck. Like, I feel like I I understood the holiness of telling stories from my days in yeshiva, from my days of going to shul and reading the same story that my ancestors for more than 3,000 years have been saying. And not only that, you know, looking back, we tell that story like over and over and over again at the same time all over the world. Like, it's exciting to be, you know, knitting together like here in New York and Australia, and I'm assuming there are other places. But we've been doing that for millennia. We have been gathering and telling stories and reminding each other who we are all over the world, spread out for so long. And that always excited me. I could never let go of that feeling of transcendence that was taught to me, that stories are important, that telling stories is important. And so when I went to NYU to Tisch, I studied acting at the Stella Adler Studio of Acting. I don't know if anyone knows this, but Stella Adler was also an activist. She was awarded um, a Medal of Honor by the Israeli government for helping save Jews in the Holocaust. And she always said, I didn't study with Stella, but her grandson is the head of acting at the studio. But she always said that growth as an actor and growth as a human being are synonymous, and that we are citizens of this world, and that we ought to elevate humanity. And she learned that from her father, Jacob P. Adler, who was a giant of the Yiddish theater. He was born in Russia and would watch the pogroms happen, couldn't take his eyes off of them. And he actually didn't leave Russia until they closed down his theater, his holy place of worship, essentially. And he stopped off in London and then brought the Yiddish theater to the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And when he died, about 50,000 people lined the streets because the Jewish community of that time understood that theater, that art making, that storytelling, that crafting um, was a holy job. And he was sort of like revered as almost like a rabbi. And I just want to say one thing to the crafters, you know, it's like such a beautiful thing to just watch you guys knit away. I'm thinking of this, I'm just thinking of those immigrants on the Lower East Side and how we couldn't get any jobs anywhere else. And the garment district, the Schmata district, right, was the one place that we could use our hands and make good in the world. And that's also how we got costumes made. Did you know that? Um, so this legacy of storytelling stayed with me for a long time, and Stella's grandson asked me to carry on the legacy of the Yiddish theater. And so for the past nearly 20 years, I have. Um, and that's where we're at.
And so there were other things in there, right? There's a lot in there. So there's acting, and then this was the Yiddish sort of built into your becoming an actor. Was that sort
Yeah.
of the journey based on where you went to school and who you learned from?
Yeah. And also, you know, I got my equity card, which is the union card, doing a play by I.B. Singer. It was a Yiddish play called Gimpel the Fool, Gimpel Tom, and I played the town squeeze, Elke. She had like baby after baby after baby, having never been with her husband, and he was like, "Oh, it's crazy. How does that happen?" Um, it was actually, I.B. Singer is so awesome because he doesn't shy away from the fact that like Jews are just people. There are shitty people, there are magnificent people. We're all of it. We're the in between. So that's how I got my union card. Being a part of the Yiddish theater and singing in Yiddish, like it never felt different to me than, you know, being in Ocean's 8 opposite Sandra Bullock. It never felt different to me than being on a TV show, you know, with, you know, Frank Langella. Like for me, I was acting with my heroes, Five-ish Finkel. We happened to be speaking in Yiddish. Um, I know to the outside eye, it seems like a totally tangential experience, but for me, it's just like I'm just telling stories, and I happen to have a skill and an affinity for language and for the Jewish experience.
I don't think they're separate. I mean, for me, and that's sort of, I think a lot of people here would nod that I think for me, my Jewish identity and my crafting are completely intertwined and braided together, and I can't separate them. And I see already notes about Lori's grandfather was a tailor. My grandfather was a tailor. I mean, it's like my aunt's a potter, like all of us have these things, and they're all fused together somehow, all of this creative. I mean, for Jewish cooks, you hear this all the time. It's like, they're not like, today I'm cooking Jewish food. It's like, I'm cooking, I'm a Jew and I'm making. And it's interesting to hear you say that, and lovely to hear you say that. And maybe you can talk a little bit about your journey into making your film Oma.
Yeah. Can I pause and
Yeah.
sing a song to you called Ota Zoinente Schneider, which means this is like it's about a tailor, and Cab Calloway actually took it and made it his own, because did you know that Cab Calloway was born and raised in the tenements of Baltimore in a Jewish community? If you actually Google this song, Otazé, you'll hear him singing cantorial nigunim, because he was just baking in the, you know, a lovely Jewish soup over there. And I'll prove it to you. Here I go. Um, Here's the original. Ot azoy neint a Schneider, ot azoy neint doch. Ot azoy neint a Schneider, ot azoy neint doch. Neint und neint a ganze Woch, verdient a Gilden mit a Loch. Neint und neint a ganze Woch, verdient a Gilden mit a Loch. Ot azoy neint a Schneider, ot azoy neint doch. Ot azoy neint a Schneider, ot azoy neint doch. Here it is in the hands of Cab Calloway. He goes like this. My mama used to sing to me a plaintive little melody, and where that melody came from, I swear I'll never know. But now that I'm a citizen, the tune comes back to me again. And as I tell this story, well, just listen how it goes. Ot azay, says the tailor, as he fashions pretty clothes. Ot azay, says the tailor, as he sews and sews and sews. He's as busy as can be, making lovely finery, things my baby loves to wear when I take her to the fair. Oh, Tazay, says the tailor, as he fashions pretty clothes. Oh, Tazay, says the tailor, as he sews and sews and sews. But if you listen to Cab Calloway sing it, he really has chazonis in the beginning. And a fun fact is that, when there was profound segregation in the music world, Jewish people were like, "You're talented. You want to make music? Let's do this." That was a very common experience. Obviously, because we were, discriminated against, and so we don't play like that.
Back to Torah. we
Torah.
we think of the stranger, right? And we were strangers, and we're aware of the stranger, and we bring them in, we bring them with us. That was, I'm like, I couldn't stop smiling, and I feel it from everybody on the Zoom right now. So thank you so much for that. And I love that, like, being with you is like being in like a movie where people just burst into song at any moment. It's like the greatest kind of conversation to have. So I'm so delighted. Did you know that
If anyone does have a favorite Yiddish song and they want to,
you're
type,
taking requests?
I'll take requests.
Oh my God, guys, this is it.
I told Tanya before I got on, I was like, if this is a lecture, I feel very nervous. But if it's a conversation, I can do conversation. I could do lectures. I could do requests.
We can go a lot of places for lectures. This is a community, and we're not lecturing at all, and we're so happy. This is, is when you and I got on the Zoom, I was talking about reaching for healing, and we have a lot of crafters here. That's like what my go-to is for healing. And last night all I could do was knit, and I just knit and knit and knit for a few hours, which I don't often give myself time to do. And it was just like the only thing I could do. And I felt like myself again for the first time in many days. And raisins and almonds and raisins, that's like the most beautiful.
I do it. But I just it's an important thing that you're mentioning, which is like to be in creation. This wisdom that I'm about to share is actually not Jewish. It's from the Vedas, but I have this sort of sense that, I'll take a good idea wherever you'll give it to me. There's a concept in the Vedas that says that we're always either in three phases of life, and we're in creation, we're in maintenance, or we're in destruction. And that maintenance, if you're just coasting, it is a clear path straight to destruction. Now, the good news is that whenever you are in a destructive phase, the next phase is creation. But in order to not keep cycling through, the best thing we can do is to keep creating. The other best thing we can keep doing is mitzvahs.
Love that.
It feels good.
We have a big event coming up, which I'll share more about at the end of this. I don't want to take a minute of your time on it. So did you know about Cab Calloway before you started your new project? And can you tell everyone about that?
Yeah, so I'm endeavoring to create a documentary about Yiddish music, klezmer music. I was just in Poland in a place called Lodz. We call it Lodz in Yiddish, or Łódź in Polish. And wow, there are so many Jewish ghosts there. It's like wild. But there are also living Polish people who are still playing klezmer music. And I just can't be the only one to know this. So I would like very much to create this documentary. And so I'm slowly creating a documentary and an album called Klezmerette. I did happen to know about Calloway because my mentor, Zalman Mlotek, really took me under his wing. After I graduated from the Stella Adler studio, where Stella's grandson was really very kind to me and offered me a scholarship to study Yiddish, I began mentoring under Zalman Mlotek of the National Yiddish Theater Volksbühne, and he taught me hundreds of Yiddish songs. And I had never sung before. I wouldn't consider myself a singer. I mean, I am now a folk singer, but I'm not a trained singer. I'm a trained actor, so I feel kind of funny about that. But the songs really started singing through me. Okay, so we sing Rosenkes mit Mandlin. It's a good song to be reminded of our of where we've come from and where we're going, because it actually is a song from the operetta called Shalamis. And it was folklorized because it has a sort of prophetic nature. The words say in the Beis Hamikdash, in like the synagogue, the holy place of the synagogue, there's a widow holding her son, a yidele. Now it's a metaphor for a little Jew, meaning the Jewish people, and she rocks him to sleep. And under um, uh, his bassinet is a goat that goes to the market and haggles for raisins and almonds. But one day when the trains encircle the world, when there is plenty, you will see that you will have riches beyond measure, but you will always remember, Yidele, where you came from, and you will always remember these raisins and almonds. In dem Beis Hamikdash, in a winkel cheder, sitzt die Almune, Bastion allein. Hier bin ich, hier Yidele, Wixi, Geseder. Zum Schlafen, a Liedele schön. Ay, lilu, 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 lilu. I'm gonna go a little higher. Unter Yideles Wiegele steht a klare weiß Ziegele. Das Ziegele ist gefahren handeln. Do es wird sein dein Beruf, Rozinkes mit Mandlin. Schlaf, Jidele, schlaf. Es wird kommen a Zeit von Eisenbahnen. Sie werden verflitzen a halbe Welt. Eisener Wegen, weiß die euch spannen. In Westwillen euch verdienen viel Geld. Ay, lilu, 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 lilu. Und hast du West werden reich, Jidele, soll sich der Monnen in dem Liedele. Rozinkes mit Mandlin, das wird sein dein Beruf. Jideles wird als handeln. Schlaf, Jidele, schlaf. Schlaf, Jidele, schlaf means sleep. Little Jew, sleep.
I think you've just tucked us all in. We're ready to be in the best way. That was so comforting and beautiful. And I'm just going to read what Maureen wrote. This gives me chills. Anyone else feeling the neshamas of their grandmothers and great grandmothers listening along with their heads and smiling right now? You've given us such a beautiful gift. What did you say in the beginning? About elevating humanity.
Yeah. You know, it's the job of the artist to elevate humanity. And Stella Adler really drove that into her students and her who became the teachers. Um, Sometimes she didn't say it in the nicest way, you know. Just if you ever look at Stella Adler teaching, she's just yelling at people. But you know, she has such a reverence for the writer because we as Jewish people have a reverence for language. We understand that language is holy, that in fact, somehow we erected our ancient, indigenous, nearly dead language. And somehow, for 3,000 years, scattered all over the earth, we were still learning our language. And that it was the basis of Yiddish, of Judeo Aramaic, Arabic, of Ladino, that this holy language was something that we taught our children from one generation to the other. And so when Stella came, you know, she would call herself a Russian broad or Russian Jewish broad, although she was born, on the Lower East Side. She she learned from Stanislavski, but she and Lee Strasberg and Meisner, these were Jewish people who understood that the written word, of course, in my case, it would be the playwright or the songwriter, but that the written word is holy, that it is actually part of the reason why we feel our grandparents present with us when I sing in Yiddish is because it is a channel, it is a portal to generations past and to generations forward because language is holy. And so she would always say, you know, we're there to serve the playwright and we're there to elevate humanity. Like it's not just about you being pretty and you being famous. It's about something a lot more than that.
We feel it. You are pretty and your voice is pretty, but it's so much more than that. And that's what's sort of hitting us in the kishkas, if you will, and it's incredible.
Do you want to hear Oifen Pripacek?
Of course. I'm not ever saying no to anything.
Okay, great. But do you guys know Oifen Pripacek? You can sing along with me. We do.
We're having a sing
Are we
along.
singing? All right. Oifen Pripacek brennt a Feuer und in Stub ist heiß und lernt kleine Kinderlach dem Alef Beis und lernt kleine Kinderlach dem Aleph Beis. So it's a song about learning the Aleph Beis. Zetje Kinderlach, gedenksche Teiere, was ihr lernt do. Sog noch amol und tage noch amol, komet's Aleph o. Sog noch amol und tage noch amol, komet's Aleph o. So he says to repeat it again and again. That repetition is actually what is so holy about the stories we tell. You know, even on Broadway, people ask, oh, well, how are you not bored of saying the same words over and over again? But it's actually that repetition, that depth of understanding that keeps us connected to our people. Because he says, as ihr wird kinderlich älter werden, when you get older children, wird ihr allein verstehen, you alone will understand, wie viel in die Oisies liegen Tränen, how much in these letters lie tears, und wie viel gewinn, and how full they are. Zetje kinderlich, gedenksche Teiere, was ihr lernt do. Sog je noch amol und tage noch amol, Komm jetzt alle vor, sag je noch einmal und tage noch einmal. Komm jetzt alle vor, als ihr wird kinderlich älter werden, wird ihr allein verstehen. Wie viel in die Häusjes liegen Tränen und wie viel Gewein. Wie viel in die Häusjes liegen Tränen und wie viel Gewein. That's all I got for you for a project. Thank you very much.
How can I talk after that? It was just so beautiful for a non-singer. I mean, come on. That was I don't know what kind of training you would need. You could be teaching the next generation and hopefully will be and certainly will be inspiring them through your film when it debuts and you now have we're going to be there. We're going to be there opening night. Tell us a little bit, tell us how we support the project that you're working on.
How can you support it? Well, we're still fundraising. It's like the most, indie filmmaker thing to say, but it's the truth. So we have like a nonprofit link that you can use for a tax deductible donation, or you could just use PayPal. But we are still fundraising so that I can film the next time I go to Poland. They invited me back because apparently the Polish government is trying very hard. That's the end of that sentence. And they'd like to bring me to Paris also, and I think that's great. And I love live theater so much. But I just don't know that enough people know about this beautiful tradition. So it costs some guilt to film the experience and then to edit the experience and all of that. But Yiddish is alive and well in Argentina, in Romania, in Poland. Yiddish song is sung in Israel, in pockets here and there, and I would love so much to be able to capture it. Of course, to sing it, but also if I'm not the singer, that's fine too. I just want to make sure that that this canon of music that was written for us, for me and you, is honored and shared. So if there's a way that you'd like to donate, or you can just follow me on Instagram and follow our journey there, that would be great too.
And it's your name and the project name, if we want to Google it. Will you give
Klez-
us
yeah, it's called
Klezmerette?
Klezmerette. Here. So.
Good. I'm putting you in the, in the hot seat on advocating for the project, but it's just so important. And you and I have this other strange connection that we realized, which was to the place of the very first Yiddish literary festival, Czernowitz, Romania. And so I have cousins who everyone who knows me knows are like incredibly important to me and like sort of my living links to my European family. And I won't talk about them now, but one day we'll have them on the Zoom if we can. And you also have a link to that city, and it inspired a different project that you worked on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Tanya, thank you so much. That's so amazing. How lucky are we to have Tanya? Best. My grandmother was born in Czernowitz. I also thought it was always Romania because she spoke Romanian, she spoke Yiddish, she spoke German. She considered herself to be Austro-Hungarian or Austrian because her father was a soldier in World War II for Austria, and she lived a really nice life before the Holocaust, where she lost her first husband and her mother, and really a lot more than that. And I realize now that it's actually Chernovtsi in Ukraine. The borders have changed so many times. I've never been, so Tanya, maybe we should go together and maybe we're related actually. But it is truly a crazy experience for me to be sitting here in the safety of, Brooklyn, and to know that my grandparents on my mother's side were from Chernovtsi in Ukraine. My grandparents on my father's side were born in Esfahan, Iran, and my parents are Israeli, and all three countries are just ablaze in war. And I feel so lucky to be, first of all, to be safe, to be proudly Jewish, to be an artist. I feel like I really won the karmic lottery somehow. But I did my first film was about my grandmother, about the experience of being a third generation Holocaust survivor and the burden of that, the resilience of that. And it's available on Amazon Prime. Beautiful actress named Lynn Cohen, um, who played Golda Meir in Munich. She was a wonderful, wonderful actress. She played my grandmother.
Incredible. What a tribute to, and it's a complicated relationship, right? And a complicated story.
Yeah, I think a lot of people actually do have this experience with their Holocaust surviving parents and grandparents, where they are on one hand they're heroes, and they absolutely are, and on the other hand, really, really traumatized, really complicated people. Like I never felt like I used to write a lot about her on Instagram also because that's actually how I started my Instagram account, was because I was, raising money for this first film. And I when she died, the first thing I wrote was I had this narrative about my grandmother running that she never really liked me because she never really did. And that's sort of true. She also never really liked Yiddish because guess what? She's a person and has preferences. Like she didn't have to be perfect just because she survived the Holocaust. For me, that made her a really interesting character, of course, in my film, but also in her life. And the same feeling that you all have when you feel like your grandparents are with you when I sing in Yiddish. I have a very, very strong connection to my ancestors, and I can feel them very, very strongly, partially because of the fact that I sing in Yiddish, but also because I sing in Hebrew. But I feel very complete with my grandmother in her passing. Like there's only so much a person can go through. And I wanted very much for her to tell me her story. And it turns out it wasn't for me to get. She didn't want to tell me. And I don't know if I'm in the minority. I'm not sure actually. But when I was growing up, people would always say, we need to hear the stories of the survivors so that it never happens again, so that we can tell the world. But she was 97 years old and she never wanted me to know the details. She was sparing me she was sparing me, I was sparing her. We were taking care of each other and she was taking care of herself. And through the making of my film, where I thought for sure I'm going to get it because I have a deadline and I'm 25, so I'm going to get it. you know, the really humility really smacked me in the face when I realized, oh, it's not mine to get. That's her life. You know?
That's a really unfortunate and meaningful segue to today, where we're witnessing trauma every day, and we open our phones and just are exposed to images that none of us ever thought, pogroms, right before our eyes, and worse, right? And just the continued sort of trauma that comes from October 7th. And you've really stepped into this place of advocacy, which I remember when you started, my tender creative heart was very worried for your heart, because it knocks me down. It's really hard for me. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you walk the line between sharing these sharing stories and making sure this is in front of people and also protecting your neshama, your soul.
I don't know that I always succeed in that. But I've been advocating for Jews probably my entire career because I didn't realize that I was experiencing anti-Semitism when I was at NYU, but I was. And I also am just proud to be Jewish. Like if I have a public platform of any kind, like you'll likely hear a Jewish phrase and a Jewish story because I like you and me and us. I like it. I find us interesting. Um, and so, but in 2021, I started realizing that my contemporaries don't like me or Israel very much. And I do a lot of work on social media, fortunately and unfortunately, and I was privy to a lot of hate very early on in 2021. And part of being a, a third generation Holocaust survivor is that that is very much baked into my DNA. There have been studies of that being the truth, and I can share that here I really could not move out of my bed for about a month. When I saw, whoa, this isn't over in 2021, I really could not literally physically move. I experienced really serious paralysis, and I have two little kids. And I thought, okay, well, the best way forward is for me to fight through it. And maybe that was the case for some time, but it is 2025 now, and it has been a long, long time. And the images that I have been privy to are just horrific and horrendous and not for my eyes. I was invited to see the 47-minute film of the Hamas atrocities. That's not for me. That's for someone who doesn't believe that happened. That's not for you. Like, there is no reason why, in my opinion, we would be promoting these images to Jewish audiences. And the world does have to know. So there I am walking that line again, right? Like Yarden Bibas, who lost his wife and children in the most horrific way, asks us to tell the world, And I want to help, and I want to, and I have to look around at your beautiful faces and say, I need to remind you also of the beauty of being Jewish. I need to remind you of the beauty of life itself. I need to be reminded of that myself, you know? So I don't know that I'm always successful at taking care of myself. It really has cost me a lot of, actually, like a real financial struggle, because people don't want to deal with it. They don't have the emotional capacity to deal with what is going on with the Jewish community. And so it has been horrible, horrible. But I really love being Jewish. And I really want my kids to love being Jewish. I want them to live in a world where they get to visit Israel and like sing Jewish music at the top of their lungs and share it with the world the way I have been able to. You know, I so I keep sharing to the best of my ability. I keep sharing the joy of it. Um, and sometimes I have to go to the dark side too. I'm still finding my way.
I think you're not alone in any of that. And it's really tough, and I keep going back to what you said. I wrote it on my paper and I put a box around this idea of elevating humanity. And I think that's what so much, where we are brought to what we do with our hands as an act of healing, but also, as a way of creating something new. And that's so, there's a beautiful Dara Horn quote in a piece she wrote in October of 2023. And she said, like, don't focus so much on all the horrors. Like Jews, we all know what the horrors are. Focus on the fact that we keep coming back, that we have this resilience, that we keep creating anew, we keep building anew, and try really hard to focus on that creative resilience that we Jews all have, because we have the trauma in us, but we also have the creative resilience in
Oh my
us.
God, we really do. Do you know what my son's name is?
No,
Ness. His name is Ness. Miracle, because actually, if you would let me walk you through a meditation,
please.
I want you to feel in your bones how miraculous and longed for and loved our life is. Like the fact that we exist, how our ancestors, if we close our eyes and we imagine our father on our right hand and our mother on our left, and if we had a complicated relationship with them, would you hold them to the highest light? And then on your father's side, go ahead and introduce your grandmother and your grandfather. Your grandfather on his side, on his right side, and your grandmother on his left side. And on your mother's side, go ahead and bring in your grandparents. On your maternal side, your grandfather standing on her right, and your grandmother standing on her left. Introduce yourself to your great-grandparents. Welcome them in. Let them take their place in this constellation. Breathe in this triangle with you at the head. And what if we brought in your great-grandparents? What if you said hello and allowed them the nachas of standing by their child? Grandfather on the right, grandmother on the left. And watch them all file in, your great-great-grandparents, your great-great-great-grandparents. See how they want so badly just to let you know. How very loved and wanted you are. How they longed for you. How they prayed for you. How they twisted themselves from this side of the world to the other just for you. And if you have a child, you can bring them in right in front of you. Perhaps you'll invite your partner if you have one. On your right side. You'll inhale all together with me. And exhale. Take all that heaviness that you feel in your heart, all that worry, and go ahead and lean back and let them hold you. And breathe from this place. Just a reminder that that's all they've ever wanted. Maybe they didn't always show it. Maybe they couldn't express it. But in their highest iteration, your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents thrilled to be in this constellation, just holding all of your worry, all of your soothes, really just holding it for you, letting you know you are being literally held by them. And if they could whisper one thing to just you, Gail, just you, Nancy, just you, Jamie, Tanya, just to Leslie, just to Dahlia, just to Allison or Faye, just to Seraphima, or Jane or Rifa or Lori or Eileen or Elizabeth or Denise, what would they whisper to you? What is the secret they want you to know? A reminder that these ancestors of yours are always, always, always available to you. If you have any wisdom from your people, would you write it down? So easy to forget. If you heard a whisper, let them know you heard it just by writing it down. Keep loving. They are reminding me of the resilience. Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, wow. Our job is to remind others of our light and taking care. Our hearts are one. Love you. Love. Not to be silly or sarcastic. I love that. That's so specific to Joanna. But I feel like one of the foremothers is telling me to make sure I put enough salt in the chicken soup. It's so important. Such a crowded Zoom. It's nice to meet some of them, huh? For the first time. Something I was reminded of was that, like, call your grandmother. You know, like, they're available. If you need chizuk, you need a little bit of strength. If you need a little bit of tough love, like there's not enough salt in your chicken soup. You know what? Do you want to know what my grandmother once told me in one of these meditations? Get glamorous. Here I am with my unwashed hair. She's like, girl, get glamorous.
You are glamorous and you are radiant, and you've given us so much light and so much love. And I can feel it. I can feel it through the Zoom. And I just keep finding myself saying, like, real things happen in these Zooms, and they do. And you've created very real, very beautiful feelings for all of us. And you have elevated every human here.
Tumbalalaika. Should we sing Tumbalalaika? Steht der Bucher in der Tracht, Tracht und Tracht a ganze Nacht. Wemmen zu nehmen, in nit verschämen, wemmen zu nehmen, in nit verschämen. Tumbalala, tumbalala, tumbalalaika, tumbalala, tumbalala, tumbalalaika, tumbalalaika, spielbalalaika, tumbalalaika, freilich soll sein. Mädel, Mädel, ich will bei dir fragen, wo's kann wachsen, wachsen ohne Regen, wo's kann brennen, in die Teufel, wo's kann bänken, weinen und tränen. Tumbalala, tumbalala, tumbalalaika, tumbalala, tumbalala, tumbalala. Tumbalalaika, spielbalalaika, tumbalalaika, freilich soll sein. Narische Bucher, wo's darfst dir fragen, na stehen, kann wachsen, wachsen ohne Regen. Liebe kann brennen, in die Teufel, na Herz kann bänken, weinen und tränen. Tumbalala, tumbalala, tumbalalaika, tumbalala, balala, bailala. Tumbalalaika, spielbalalaika, tumbalalaika, freilich soll sein. Thank you.